Good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Wednesday, December 18th, 2019. And here is your top story. Congress has decided to act by including the Secure Act in its appropriations bill. This is amazing news. And joining me to discuss this throughout the entire show, Kevin Walsh. He's a principal with Groom Law Group, an employee benefits firm based in Washington, D.C. Kevin, welcome back to the program. A joyous day.
A joyous day, Jeff. I mean, I didn't think this day was ever going to come. After 3 years of betting that retirement legislation would pass, I finally threw in the towel this year and had bet that it would not pass. And it looks like kind of the key to getting retirement legislation across the finish line is that I have to be betting against it.
Yeah,
so I'm 0 for 4. But I'm a joyous 0 for 4 today.
Yeah, this is, Kevin, I mean, we have talked about it on this program and in other places. You've been speaking, you and your colleague David Levine have been speaking about this. This is a significant act. The Secure Act has significant changes. Why don't you talk a little bit about what this means in terms of next steps in the appropriations process, et cetera?
So, just as an update, what we're talking about today is the Secure Act, and we've talked about it a number of times. It's probably the most significant retirement reform bill since the Pension Protection Act back in 2006. And really what this is it's a handful of provisions, about 20 provisions that have been floating around and have had bipartisan support for the last few years. And this year what we saw was, in May, the House passed this with a vote of 417 to 3. And you may recall, and I'm sure that Jeff could go back and pull these segments, me saying 417 to 3, this could pass by UC by Memorial Day. And then it did.
Yeah.
And then, and then I think around the 4th of July, there's probably, because there's a piece that also impacts military families. Me saying, 4th of July, what better time could there be to pass this than the 4th of July? And then it didn't. So by the fall, I had become a pessimist. And then, on Monday night, the House released text after we've been hearing kind of all weekend that it was likely that this was going to get included in their year-end spending bill. They released text, and Division O of the spending bill is the Secure Act. And what that means is that, on Tuesday, the House of Representatives voted to pass the spending bill, and then either today or tomorrow, we anticipate that the Senate will pass the spending bill and that the president will sign it. And kind of why I'm so bullish now, despite the fact that the Senate has been the holdup in the past, is now the Secure Act. It's not sitting there by itself saying,
right,
we'd really like it if we got some retirement legislation across the finish line. It's tied to keeping the lights on. So Republicans and Democrats, senators and members of the House and the White House have been hashing out a deal to keep the lights on through the holidays, a spending bill so that there's no shutdown. And now Secure is attached to that piece of legislation that keeps the lights on. So there's no time left to amend it. If the Senate doesn't act, it's not like this can go back to the House. This needs to be done by Friday. So I'm bullish at this point that come Christmas morning, come the middle of Hanukkah, come New Year's, the Secure Act will be in place.
Yeah, and in a time when it's very cantankerous, there's back and forth on a lot of different issues that we're not going to discuss on the program. This is one area, as you indicated, this is bipartisan support. And we'll talk about in the second segment of the impact to coverage, right? I know you want to talk about that, but this is really kind of one of those feel-good moments. And I kind of echo what you're saying. No one wants to go back on Christmas or holiday break and tell constituents we couldn't keep the lights on. I mean, there's a vested interest of all three branches, or both branches, I should say. Man, I got to get my constitution out of both branches.
I'm going to get involved.
Right. So both branches, the executive branch and the legislative branch, working together, keep the lights on, which is important. Get those checks cut, get the government working, but also tied to this, the Secure Act. And I think this is one of those things that people can go back to their constituents and say, I helped do this. this is important. We've got major changes coming in 2020. Kevin.
I think that's dead on. And then from a process standpoint, because I know we're going to talk substance a little more in the second segment, what's exciting is that, the ideas in the Secure Act, while they're great and they're advancing the ball, in the 5 years where we've been talking about RESA and the Secure Act, there have been other ideas that have come out for kind of ways that we can improve the retirement system. And essentially, Secure has been kind of blocking the pipeline for these new innovative proposals that could kind of further change and further enhance the ability of Americans to meet their retirement saving needs. So I think next year we could really start seeing more freewheeling debates over what should be included, what shouldn't be included, as we look at kind of the next gen of retirement legislation.
And for those out there who may not kind of understand the efforts that go into this, it's not just an effort by congressional staff and the White House. There's different interest groups. There's record keepers. There's investment management firms. There are law firms. There are various constituencies that are involved with, I don't want to say pushing is the right issue, maybe lobbying is the right issue, is the right word, but getting this on front and center to say we need to get this done, that this is important, right, Kevin? I mean, there are numerous groups.
I mean, we all think retirement's an important issue, and it is an important issue. But if you're talking the Hill, they've got tons of important issues. I mean, if we look just this week, they've got keep the lights on, impeach the president, trade deal with Canada and Mexico. I mean, there's a whole lot going on, and retirement's important, but everyone thinks their issue is important. So the fact that kind of the retirement landscape, from kind of the trades representing retirement savers to the trades registry, to kind of the retirement-related media, to the think tanks and the kind of universities that are focused on retirement, have all kind of been working together and saying, we need you to stay focused on this. It's really a testament to kind of the ability of everyone who recognizes that retirement is important, that this bill managed to get attached to a spending bill.
Yeah, and it's uniformly bipartisan, not only in the Congress between the two political parties, but everyone agrees that this is important. And that's like, Kevin, this is like the first time that everyone can be on the same page in the industry to say we need this. Everyone, there's something in this for every various constituency. So kudos to them, kudos to the members of Congress and the staff. I'll just hand those out. And Kevin, I want to hold you over. When we come back, we're going to talk to Kevin about maybe some of the implications, what this means for coverage and other issues, because this is important. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. We're talking to Kevin Walsh. He's a principal with the employee benefits law firm Groom Law. Kevin, thanks so much for sticking around this morning. A momentous conversation, a momentous day today.
Thanks for having me on. I mean, I think this is one of the last times I'll be able to talk about the Secure Act. So I've been talking about it for months and months on end. So I've got to get one last chat out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're on the missing participants. But that's a separate show. Kevin, let's talk.
Going there, so I didn't have to.
Okay. Kevin loves missing participants or loves finding them. This is an important conversation. We're going to talk about that in future episodes because we love having Kevin and his colleague David on. So, Kevin, let's talk about the implications, what this means effective January 1st, 2020.
So to me, the biggest story here is about access to retirement plans. So we can talk about a lot of pieces. We can talk about required minimum distributions. We can talk about inherited IRAs. But to me, the real story is coverage. And for the past few years, we've been trying to figure out how do we get more Americans to a secure retirement? And some of it is that, 50% of small employers, they're not offering retirement plans. So if you don't have access to a plan, your ability to get to retirement is really limited, really impaired, and kind of the nudges that help you get there aren't in place. So this bill really does two things that to me are significant steps towards kind of closing the coverage gap. First, one thing is it makes it easier to offer coverage to employees who work between 500 and 1,000 hours a year. Now, that's a big group of part-time employees who traditionally, they've had to kind of save through IRAs. They've had to save outside of plans. And this kind of is a way to really give them access to vehicles. The second really goes at small employers. So part-timers get into plans, but also small employers are going to be offering more plans. One issue we've talked about a bunch is open MEPs, which are multiple employer plans.
Right.
And an issue that small employers face is that if they want to offer coverage, if they want to offer a plan, they've typically had to bear all of the burden of administering a plan, finding service providers, making sure they can find their participants, Jeff, and other aspects of plan administration and implementation. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow kind of third-party entities, be they record keepers, be they chambers of commerce, whoever they might be, to design a plan, to administer the plan, to run the plan, to pick the investment options in the plan. And if you're a small employer, you'll look at this marketplace of entities that are running plans, and you'll be able to say, I'd like to buy my way into your plan. My employee contributions, my employer contributions, they'll go into your plan. I'll probably pay you some to run my plan. But small employers will be able to enter these plans that'll be offered to other small employers. Yeah. And the idea is that by having less administrative costs, by having a reduced compliance burden, by having less fiduciary risk on these small employers, access will increase because it's going to be a whole lot easier if you're a small employer now to find a plan and to run a plan.
And Kevin, I just want to throw out one number that I think is really important. There's an estimated 60 to 70 million Americans who do not have access to a workplace retirement plan. So they are currently could be invested in IRA, but that is significant. That's a significant number. And this would essentially close that gap.
Yeah. So when we talk about kind of the problems that Americans face in terms of getting to a secure retirement, and during the fiduciary rule, we were talking about fees as one aspect of it. But more important than fees really is access. So this bill really is going at the idea that Americans need to have better access to retirement plans. And that's a significant development. The other way that they really address kind of the problem of Americans in secure retirement is, if you're someone who's been saving for retirement and you realize you don't have enough quite to get to retirement, you might decide you're going to work a little bit longer. And traditionally, at age 70 and a half, you've been required to start taking money out of your plan. And if you're working and you're not quite at a point where you feel like your pool of money, your pool of investments is enough to get you through retirement, you've been having to take money out of it no matter what. And they've pushed that back from 70 and a half to 72. And that might not sound like a big difference, but even a year and a half of compounding, a year and a half of being able to not take that money out, that could mean at the other end, you could be getting another year and a half or even 2 years with investment returns. So it really has gone at access. And then it's also gone at the idea that if people are allowed to keep their money in plan longer, that they might have more years, their risk of running out of money might decrease.
Yeah, and that's really important. That's one thing I never understood. If people are working longer, why can't you defer that what's called a required minimum distribution? Kevin, annuities, retirement income. This is the holy grail. Hopefully I'm not offending anybody. This is the holy grail. There's a big provision in here for the inclusion of annuities and retirement income products into a retirement plan. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Let me talk quickly about it because I'm not sure if this is going to be of interest to everyone here, but kind of the key takeaway is that I think we're going to start seeing more innovation of the options that you see inside a retirement plan. So right now, you typically have access to mutual funds or CITs, which look a whole lot like mutual funds to savers. And these are products that they're usually a blend of stocks and bonds, and where the person holding them ultimately sells them to generate cash. So over time, your account portfolio goes down and you end up using that money for cash.
Right.
What this is doing is it's making it easier for plan fiduciaries to offer annuities inside plans. And the idea here is that instead of having to sell something to generate cash, you'll be able to buy something that then provides you with income in retirement. So instead of having your account balance go down and you're just using that, your risk of running out of money will be borne by the annuity company, the insurance company. And this could be a significant development in terms of having new products and plans. Now, I think this is really only the first wave. Annuities in plans are a huge development. Annuities inside target date funds could be a development here. But also, it could be a signal to plan fiduciaries, particularly in the defined contribution space, that the time's come to begin looking at kind of innovative new asset classes, which could really generate kind of a better risk return profile for retirement savers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's going to be absolutely amazing. Lastly, Kevin, let's just talk about, and we'll have you back on to talk about this more and more, but we just wanted to kind of get this out there. This is such important news. In terms of the implications, if you're an employer or you're a participant, let's talk about the impact to them, what they potentially could be thinking about in order to ascribe to these changes, these significant changes, what they could have to do.
So if you're an employer, I think it's worth taking a look at these provisions because there's other provisions that relate to plan design that really relate to like non-discrimination testing and other issues that it really merits talking with a lawyer about, just to be totally self-serving.
That's fine.
Also, if you're an employer, you're a plan fiduciary, it might make sense to begin kind of, if you don't have a plan, beginning to understand what MEPs could mean. Beginning to understand what these multiple employer plans could be, because this really might be an opportunity from a recruiting and retention standpoint to attract better talent. If you're an individual, what you're going to start seeing also here is you might start seeing disclosures that describe your account not only as a lump sum, but also as an income stream. So it might be helpful here to think about your retirement savings as a way to purchase an annuity, or even as an income stream in themselves, where it might make sense to start thinking in a longer term horizon, particularly with the changes to the R&D rules.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Secure is a helpful step. There will be more steps in the next few years, but we expect to see better access to retirement savings vehicles and more innovative product design in the near future.
Yeah. Well, this is certainly a momentous day. Congratulations to everyone involved in moving this forward. And Kevin, we can sense your passion. Appreciate you coming on. I know you're dressed for employee meetings client meetings. So we'll return you to the rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will talk to you soon about other issues.
Jeff, did you notice I wore a celebratory pin today?
I did. Congratulations, Kevin. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll have you back on the program very soon to talk about missing participants. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, folks, that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. And I have to say, I am very optimistic with the inclusion of the Secure Act in the appropriations bill. We'll have to see how things progress throughout the week. Hope you enjoyed the show, though, and hope you found it educational. And hey, have a topic of interest or someone you think that we should interview? Don't forget, drop us a line. And for all the news, including the Secure Act in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and more, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
you're tired of the same